Welcome to In Progress, a podcast to help you grow and learn how to become a better version of yourself. Now, here's your host, Michael Sirigliano.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of In Progress. I'm your host, Michael Sirigliano, with special guest, music producer, Alex Kavulich.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Absolutely, not a problem.
It's the first time I've ever called you Mike in your life. It's normally Michael.
As it should be. Papa would not be happy.
Papa would not be happy with me right now.
So, last episode that Alex was on, it was a while back, towards the beginning of In Progress. I highly suggest checking out that episode. He talks in depth about his battle through addiction and the dark path that he went on through his battle with addiction and how he came out on the other end, successful, healthy, and happy. And the reason why I brought him on today is to give us an update and run through that one more time for everyone at home. I feel as though an in-person interview is obviously going to be a lot more effective and a lot more feeling involved, a lot more emotion involved than just a Zoom call. So that's why we did this again. And I told everyone watching and you last time that I did the interview, I'm going to bring it back. So here we are.
Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here. So,
yeah, it's been a while since we've talked,
So, last episode that you were on, we were talking about how you kind of started off with the drug addiction. And how it started as like a small thing, and then it stepped up until finally you reached that not up.
That everyday
low.
point.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
So why don't you run through that for everybody? Like,
Sure.
How did it start for you?
So, like we said in the last video, and I definitely recommend, who's watching it, check out the video.
Absolutely.
And, so, I'm not going to say his name, mutual friend between us, we'll keep him anonymous because,
Yes.
That's not, I'm not here to tell anybody else's story but mine. But, we just started, one night, I had always told myself, I remember actually back up a little bit. I remember in maybe 7th grade it was talking with our friend Colby Creamer.
Mm-hmm.
We were just messing around. I think it might have been a free period or something. We're talking about, weed and how he told me, he's like, I may drink when I'm older, but I'll probably never smoke weed. And I told him, I was like, probably never drink or smoke weed. And, we're sitting here talking about a path through addiction. So, it's a funny way to start it, but, that friend of ours, in our, our circle there, we ended up smoking weed one night.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think I smoked it right. I didn't really get high. Honestly, we were at our other friend's house where we always hung out.
Yep.
And, I was basically like trying to pretend to myself that I was high, like trying to feel it, and I never got that. And I think that might have started a little bit of a seeking behavior. Like maybe I'll try that again just to see if I can do it right.
Yeah.
Went online, did a little bit of research, found out you have to actually inhale it.
Yeah.
You have to inhale it.
That's how you get high, guys. You have to inhale.
Inhale the weed.
But I definitely understand what you're saying there, because I remember the first time that you introduced me to Coke. I remember we were in front of Tops. You were skating, and I got out of work and I met you there.
Yeah.
And we did a line off of my car.
Off your car, yeah.
And I didn't feel anything. And at that point, that's what kind of had me, as we were talking earlier, kind of pursue that feeling, because so many people talk positively about the effects of it, and you're like, well, I didn't experience that. I need to try it again and again and again.
Yeah.
Again.
I mean, by the time we, excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold. By the time we were, smoking the weed for the first time, we were in high school, and we knew a handful, if not more than a handful of people that smoke weed, and daily smokers.
Literally.
Went to school high.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what is the allure behind that? So when I didn't get high that time, and I, tried very hard to feel it, I definitely wanted to try that out. And that's how my drug addiction started, right? It was doing a little research online, of various drugs, like, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about it as we get deeper into my story, but like Molly, MDMA, you know. I looked it up one day on the computer, you know, read the effects of it, you know, euphoria, which if anybody doesn't know, euphoria is a enhanced like feeling of well-being, like extreme happiness. So that, you know, the word obviously happy is for happy. You know, euphoria is a scientific term as a side effect for certain drugs that cause an intense pleasurable experience. So, you know, I read that, you know, it gave you euphoria and all this different kind of stimulation, whatever it was, and I made sure, you know, I immediately went on Facebook and found somebody that I probably thought knew where I could get it, and I got it, you know, and that's basically the beginning of my drug addiction.
So
know?
when you did the Molly for the first time, you hit somebody up that you thought had it, and did you do it by yourself, or did you have somebody there to do it with?
That guy that
we
guy
talked
did
about
did it with me.
Makes
and
sense.
This well, only because we had done something earlier. So I can go through that story. Actually, it's kind of funny. I mean, not funny. You know, nobody's addiction is
retrospectively. It's funny now.
When we think of we think on it, yes, retrospectively, you know, it was a funny experience. I'll tell the whole story just because, you know, somebody might get a kick out of it. You know, I don't know, but this guy, same guy that we smoked. Me and him smoked weed together for the first time, you know. He ended up picking me up at my house one night. Excuse me. It was must have been like 8:30, 9 p.m. Just had a fight with my parents for going out because they already knew this guy was bad news, you know.
Everybody did.
You know, I told them, you know, I'm going to spend the night at so-and-so's house, you know, don't worry, everything's going to be fine, you know.
I'm strong. I'm not going to give into it.
By this time, I've only smoked weed, but, you know, the reason we had the fight was because I was going out every single night. You know, I was never spending any time at home, and, you know, I was only 18, 19 years old, and, like, you know, you got to spend time at home with your parents and do things, you know, make like you're part of the family. So we got into a fight, whatever. She let me go. And he picked me up, and we ended up going to the gas station. I think it was Black and Milds, actually. Maybe like Swisher, maybe, you know, something to just nicotine, not weed. You know, at this point, I was smoking cigarettes, and, you know, I caught it from college. So we must have been 19 because this was after I dropped out of college.
Right.
Directly due to drugs, basically, you know, partying and joining a fraternity and just not going to class.
Chose drugs over the education. And so he picked me up, went to the gas station, and when I got back into the car after buying the Black and Milds, or, you know, whatever we bought, he pulled out a little baggie of, you know, white stuff. I had no idea what it was. He told me it was called mephedrone, MEPHE drone, which is supposed to be, it's bath salts, for lack of a better term. You know, bath salts is a very broad term. I mean, there's a lot of drugs that, if we want to get scientific, you know, I've done the research. You know, we'll probably make sure you research before you do it.
We'll get into this, you know, throughout this video, I'm sure. But like, bath salts could fall under a category of cathinones. And there's different types of cathinones. M-cathinone, which is what we did. Mephedrone is called methyl cathedrone or something like that. But there's a whole bunch of different kinds. But anyway, we got this kind, and he looks at me and he's like, dude, I did this at home. It's the best thing I've ever tried in my entire life. You're going to do it. And I'm like, no, dude, I am not putting anything up my nose. You know, that was where I drew the line at this point, right? Because I've only smoked weed and cigarettes, drank, you know, at college.
Yeah.
I had done a little bit of Molly, but I didn't snort it. It was more of a oral, which apparently gives you better effects, I guess they say.
Who knows?
High's high.
Exactly.
And at least by the end of it, you know, high is high. It doesn't even make a difference anymore. But so we ended up going to Tops. I finally decided, all right, man, let's just do it, whatever. We go into Tops in Spencerport. It's 10 o'clock at night. Nobody's in there. We have nothing to snort it with, no money, no straw, nothing. And we're literally in the Tops cafe area, sitting at a table. He pours it out on the table.
Oh, wow.
Right in the middle of Tops. I walked over to the butcher, asked for a straw and scissors so we could cut the straw. He gave it to me.
He didn't even think anything of it.
Didn't even think anything of it. I have no idea how we acquired this. So, turns out, as we find out after when we tried to find more of it, that one of those bags is actually 2 lines, and I did it all in the 1 line. So
you did the entire bag in 1 line?
The entire bag in 1 line. And
you don't play around.
No, never, man. It's the moral of my story, man. Bigger, go home, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so we, I snorted on the line. Hunter did his bag. He did the whole bag too. Oh, I shouldn't have said his name. I didn't even think about it. Okay, we'll keep it at Hunter.
It's all right.
We'll keep it at Hunter. Nobody knows his last name. He's probably long gone anyway.
Got dark.
So we did our thing. Worst burn. Like my head felt like it was going to explode.
Wow, really?
Like it was literally like snorting glass, dude. And I'm like walking around tops, like head on my hand, like, oh my God, what's going on? I ended up buying a Pepsi, I think, to like wash it, to just something to just get rid of this like headache that I was having. It only lasted maybe like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, which is a decent amount of time, but I mean, it passed pretty quickly in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
All in all, we spent 6 hours in the Tops parking lot, high,
6 hours
off our ass, just listening to music and laughing.
So what is the high like when you do this?
It was like an intense Molly high. Like you
What
take the best Molly you can get, right? Which is stimulation, that euphoria we were talking about. I mean, it can increase your libido, all this stuff. Like, just I'm trying to think of like a good like explanation of what it would feel like without like just listing symptoms, or whatever. Yeah. Like, let's say the greatest thing, you win the lottery, right? Take that 5-minute high you get from winning the lottery and expand that 6 hours, right? That's what it felt like.
Wow.
This intense, pleasurable feel. Your body is just tingling. It's warm. You've got this, my literally lips were probably here,
okay. Looking like Joker.
Yeah, just listening to music. The music, you can just feel it. And it's like, to this day, that night was the best high I have had in my entire life. Out of every single drug I have tried, every single high I've ever had, really? Besides maybe the first time I did heroin, right?
Really? Wait, so the first time you did heroin topped that?
Maybe.
Or matched that?
Matched it, I would say.
Okay.
Yep, matched it. And because I was never able to find this mephedrone again, because the heroin gave me that high. It's a different high, completely different high.
Yeah.
But the overall sensation, we can call it, right?
Yeah.
Matched.
It's equally satisfying.
Equally satisfying, especially when you inject it, right?
Right.
But so we spent 6-7 hours in that Tops parking lot, and then by the 6th hour, we're texting. Do you remember those 2 guys that we spent every night at their house?
At the trap house?
No, not the trap house. Before the trap house.
Where? In Spencerport?
Spencerport.
2 guys you spent time at their house, but it wasn't.
Not the trap house. With the really fat kid.
And his
his
ghetto.
Yeah.
That's the trap house.
I'm thinking of the other trap house, later on.
I'm talking about the trap house at the corner of Ridgeway.
We're being so vague for these people, man. It's crazy.
You're talking about the Spencerport party house.
The Spencerport party house.
That is what I refer to as the trap house.
That's where Hunter got this stuff from.
Oh, okay.
Not from the fat kid, but the ghetto kid.
Got you.
Right? So we were texting him. He couldn't get any more of it. Anyway, so our night was done. We ended up going to a friend of mine that I played volleyball with. His name's Alex as well, actually. Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. There's no way that you're about to say he got drugs.
You know who I'm talking about?
Pretty sure.
I
played volleyball at Spencerport with?
No. He played in Gates Challenge.
Oh, okay, go ahead anyway. Yep.
So we ended up buying some Xanax off of him just to go to sleep at night. I remember staying up all, not being able to sleep. I must not have taken enough Xanax. And actually, to this day, until my final overdose, right? Until I finally, this last time when I finally decided to kick the bucket and be done, right? 19 months ago, I have never, ever tried or sought out any sort of benzo like Xanax, Valium, any of that stuff. I was actually, for a period of time, prescribed Valium and Ativan, which are in the same category, never abused it, nothing like that. For some reason, they just didn't do it for me, right?
Right.
Well, so I ended up staying up all night, laying on the floor. Hunter slept.
He was a little more used to it.
I guess so. I mean, between me and you, we know that he's at least at that part, he was well advanced.
Oh yeah.
Compared to me.
Oh yeah.
We always knew him as that.
He was that guy.
That guy.
Yeah.
Actually,
now.
Yep. Go ahead.
Comparing the heroin high, that first heroin high, to methadone. You said it's a similar type of high. There's similarities between the two. But you're saying that the methadone lasted 6 hours. The heroin did not last 6 hours, right? Isn't it like a quick thing?
It depends on how you do it. So I don't know if you want to go through my story before we get to the heroin, but where we can talk about the heroin first. Well, I guess this is kind of like a short thing when we're talking about the effects, right? Yeah. When I first tried heroin, I snorted it because I was, I didn't have any needles on me. I didn't, I'm not afraid of needles, but that was like where I drew the line, right? And I'm sure as they can see and hear, right, there were many lines that were drawn that we completely blew by always, right? I remember telling you that if I ever did heroin, to just punch me in the face and whatever else, right? You never punched me in the face, but I don't think it would have done anything, right? No. Doubt it.
You would have chased it regardless. I would have felt like shit.
Yeah, I'd just be walking around with 3 teeth and, gotten it out of the way.
Yeah,
losing my teeth.
I was a lot less aggressive back then, too. So, like, when you said that, I was like, yeah, I'll do it.
And I know you did, and
I'm
like,
I'm not gonna do it.
Yep. But anyway, about the effect, right? Heroin, when you snort it, lasts a lot longer than when you shoot it. So if you snort it and you do enough, it'll last maybe 3-4 hours, which definitely is less than the methadone. You shoot it, you get this rush quick, like the minute that you're pressing the plunger, right? You're already high, right? You're already high.
Aren't you like strapped though?
Yeah, we use a tourniquet. Yeah. So
and you still feel the effects of the high, even like that quickly, even with the tourniquet?
Immediately.
Really? Yeah. And then when you release it, that's when.
Yep. And it's not just like boom high. It's like a rush. Your body, like from your toes up, you get warm, and then boom, you're done injecting it, and you're like, it's like, but the injecting, you're lucky to be high for an hour.
Really?
Yeah. It quickly through your system. The minute you have to pee, right? Gone, done.
Really? You're not peeing out the drugs.
No, I mean over time, you do pee out the heroin, but it just always felt like, when I felt like I had to pee,
done.
I knew I was done. Yeah.
How so one thing that I don't think I ever asked you, but your comfort in putting a needle into your vein. How did you go about that? Because like me personally, I've tried to wrap my head around that for multiple things, not just heroin, not just like I thought about it like heroin, how do you do it? Steroids, people that do steroids and stuff like that. And I just can't wrap my head around being comfortable injecting something into yourself. And especially like with steroids, you're kind of jabbing into a general area. Right. But with heroin, you have to find a vein.
So you can miss a vein and still get high, first of all.
So would you be injecting it into like a muscle at that point?
It would kind of be in like the space between the vein and the muscle. And it's very bad for your arm, right? You can get like abscesses and stuff from missing a vein, right? For sure. But if you do miss a vein, you still get high. It's just not. I mean, you still get that rush. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I missed my fair share of veins, right? But you still get high. But I mean, I can only speak for myself and how I ended up doing it. But I think, from what I've learned I can't say the name of the group that I'm in because we're not on press and stuff. But as I've learned from other people, who have addictions, whether they be alcohol or any drug. You know, I've met a lot of people along my road who are in recovery that have different vices than me. You know, mine ended up being opiates, you know. But if from learning from them, even though I can really only tell my story of how I did it, but I would say that the majority of people who start to inject heroin or anything, I mean, you can inject coke, you can inject
Really?
Yeah, you can inject basically anything as long as you melt it down properly. A lot of times, even for me, somebody does it to you the first time, the second time, the third time, and then until you can't find that person is when you attempt it yourself.
So it's not like a leveling up or maturing. It's kind of like I
when
need
you
this
have
high
no
and
other,
they're not
yeah,
here.
when you have no other route and you can't find somebody to do it. And you know, usually by that time you've seen somebody do it a few times, you know where your vein is, right?
Yeah.
And then you try it yourself. And that's how it happened for me. Somebody did it to me a couple times and I wanted to get high. I had the bag. And I either I can't really remember properly that night, but like I either couldn't find somebody, I couldn't leave the house, you know, whatever it may be. And I happened to have a needle. You know, I just did it myself right into the same vein that everybody else had done it in, because I mean, you can't really see mine anymore, but back in the day, I had pretty good veins and you can really see it. So the tricky part is that if you inject it into an artery, you're gone.
Ooh.
You're gone, right? I mean, there's, you know, you can live, you know, but
dangerous.
Usually, yeah. Especially once you pull the needle out, if you hit an artery, it squirts. Like, you know,
really?
Yeah, you know that you've hit an artery. So, you know, I did a little research. If you look in the arm, I don't know if you can see in yours, but there's a main vein right here that goes down. There's another one that comes off like there's another one here that comes off like a Y. This right here is your artery. So it makes like an M, the one all the way towards the center of the arm, I believe. It's been a while. It could be this one. But one of the outlier ones is the artery. However, by the end of my drug use, I really wasn't using my arm anymore. I was using my leg and in between the toes, in between your fingers. You know,
really?
Yeah.
Are there veins in there that you could use, or is it just kind of injecting into your body?
It's because the skin is so thin that you get that high even though you're missing a vein. There are veins that run through your hand and stuff like that, but like, you know, that's usually when you run out of places is when you start trying that. You know, I've actually known people that use their neck vein. I never did that. But
I feel like that's a dangerous game to play, because aren't there like major arteries all throughout your neck?
You put it in your jugular, you're done, man.
But that
then you've got then you. I hear it's so good that you meet Jesus.
It's a hell of a high. But back to what you were saying earlier. You were doing you don't do benzos. You never did mezzos. And so after you were doing this methadone, couldn't find it anymore. The local drug dealers didn't have any access to it. So where did you kind of go from there in your journey of like testing and experimenting?
After I tried the methadone, like I knew that I loved stimulants at the time. You know, and still the line was drawn at heroin, right? And once I knew that I liked that high from the methadone, I immediately knew that my life was going to be a little different, right, than was planned.
Yeah.
You know, I liked it so much that I knew that I wanted to try other things. And I knew I was completely set on the fact that, like, I don't care how my life is going to turn out, I'm going to try this other stuff at least once, right? It turned into the Molly for a little bit. Me and Hunter were big into the Molly, which gives you about the same high as the methadone, not as much, depending on the dose, right?
Right.
Of course, when we did the methadone, we're doing 2 lines in one. You know, that's possibly why it was so intense. Right.
You were doing way too much.
Yeah, exactly. So for Molly, because we snorted the mephedrone, I always snorted the Molly. It also gave you the same burn.
Mm-hmm.
But we later found out that if you actually eat it, like swallow it, you get a stronger high and a longer high. So Molly.
So how are you did it come in pill form?
You can put it in pills. It's usually like crystals.
Okay.
You can get it as powder. It comes in a whole bunch of different forms, right? A lot of people call moon rock. It's like a brown color. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different kinds depending on purity, whatever. But what we would do is literally just take the crystals. A lot of times they're pretty big.
Yeah.
It's not so much powder. Powder is easier to put into pills.
Yeah.
But we would just literally take the crystals, pop them, take some orange juice or whatever, and swallow it down so you don't get the taste.
Mm-hmm.
In an hour later, you're high for 6 hours.
Damn. Okay. And what are you doing in that 6 hour span while you're just high off your ass?
It's different every time, man. You just go with the flow. When you're in that mode, it's always just go with the flow. When I was doing heroin, I had specific things that I liked to do. Right? Depending, heroin is chilling, doing whatever you're doing, man.
Yeah.
And Molly is running, gunning. So, whether we're driving around town listening to music or, playing basketball, whatever we did during those 6 hours was always active, right? When I was on heroin, whatever I did in those 4 hours was, something relaxing, video games, TV, whatever it is. So, you find things to do, and once you find what you enjoy doing while you're in that high frame, that's what you stick with, right? And that's what I did. And, once we did the mephedrone, the big thing for me was going on Wikipedia, finding these different things that I would actually go to the controlled substances page on Wikipedia, go to the unscheduled, I think it was, class 1, which are the completely illegal ones that you can't prescribe. Schedule 2 is where you find Adderall and Ritalin.
Yeah.
That's the highest you can get prescribed.
Right.
There's a medical benefit to it. However, there's an extreme rate of addiction, right? That's a Schedule 2. Schedule 1 is things that the government does not want you to find out about. And on Wikipedia, they have a list. They have a list of all the drugs. They made it easy for me. They had a list of all the drugs that are in Schedule 1, right? Or at least the general name, like how we talked about cathinone has different, categories, that gave you the general name. You can further expand your search.
Right.
So, I looked, that's when I looked up the MDMA and messaged the guy. I wish I could tell you. I'll tell you after we're done. It's actually a really funny story too. Between us, obviously they're not gonna.
You don't get to know.
You unfortunately won't know.
It's all right. Maybe one day you'll find out.
Yeah, and before we continue though, please don't go out and use these drugs. The purpose of this video is not to talk about how great getting high is. It's about my journey and where I went and how I came out, right? And you can see a lot of it in the first video too, because even though the beginning parts were, happy-go-lucky and fun, I found myself by the end of it in places that I never thought I would be, doing things I never thought I would do, completely bankrupt, spiritually, mentally, and physically bankrupt, right? Just in a very bad place. So please don't think by these fun stories that, you're going to want to go out and try this, because it will ruin your life one way or another. It may take 20 years, it may take 3 months. It will completely ruin your life, right? Especially if you have an addictive personality, right? So I just wanted to say that first, but
no, absolutely. And to add on to that, the reason why I have this podcast and the reason why I have you on is because, we're talking positively about the drugs, but the reason why I'm asking you these questions is so that anyone watching can understand what it does without having to do it.
Right.
So that's why having done it.
That's definitely the the viewer's mindset needs to be in that position.
Exactly. Understand that these experiences that he's talking about are in fact real experiences that he went through, and there are positives to it. But as the episode goes on, and as we talked about in the last episode, it leads you down a dark path. So just listen to the episode, listen to his experiences, understand what he went through, both positive and negative, but leave it at just that. This is not a video where we're telling you, hey, go try these drugs out because these are the effects, because it's never going to end well for you.
Right.
Back to what you're saying.
Perfect. That's perfect. I just wanted to get that off just because I know we're talking about good stuff. But so yeah, we messaged that guy. We got the Molly, and I did Molly for a long time, and then the cocaine came. Right. Actually, the first time I ever tried cocaine was in college. I was 19, I believe, and there was this guy. His name is Tyler. Won't say last names here. Everybody's anonymous. He was actually 26 or 27, living on campus, going to college. He was in our friend group. That we had a group of like 9 or 10 of us that we did everything together. Besides my fraternity brothers, this is the outside the fraternity. He came up to me one night. It was like 4 a.m. We had just partied. We're trying to settle down for the night. I think it was probably just alcohol. A lot of times in college, it was really just drinking a whole fucking ton of beer, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of Molly maybe if we can get it, and nothing like that. So this guy Tyler comes up to me at 4 a.m. and says, "Hey man, I got a little bit of bag of coke. I just bought it off some guy off campus. You want to do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" And I learned about myself and how I've learned in the past 19 months about my 19 months of recovery, and I learned a lot about myself and what makes me tick and things like that.
Right.
When my mindset was about partying, having fun, making friends, I had no defense against trying something, right? No defense at all.
So you were open to everything.
Open to everything.
Gotcha.
Didn't matter what it was, right? Even in college, if somebody came up to me with a bag of dope, I probably still would have had no defense to say no. Right?
Really? Okay.
Probably
so
not.
You didn't really have a line at that point. You were ready to go and party.
Yep. But at that point, it wasn't about like searching for it. It was just the fact that my mindset was, if they're doing it, I'm going to do it because I want to be friends with them. I want to get in with these people.
Gotcha. Which a lot of people have that same, they think that same way, where it's like, I want to fit in. So I'm just going to do whatever it takes to fit in with this group.
And that's how I've been my whole life, right? Like, I honestly, like, if let's look back at like middle school, high school, even elementary school. And when I think about it, I think, I absolutely fit in everywhere I went, right? I had a lot of friends. I fit in everywhere I went. However, inside me, I never felt like I was enough.
Right.
Right. And when somebody would come up to me with drugs, or that was the plan for the night, we were going to have a good night, and I knew that I was going to fit in for however many hours, I had no defense to say no. And that's how it was with the coke. So
now, did you question regarding that?
Yeah.
Did you feel as though the drugs gave you like a barrier between who you are, like yourself, and who you portrayed? Because that's also what I realized for myself a few years ago. The reason why I drank and the reason why I did coke so much. I didn't coke so much, but I did coke. And the reason was because whatever I did while I was drunk or high, that isn't Michael. So if I do something and someone doesn't like it, oh, that wasn't me, my bad. But it gives me the ability to just do whatever and be that life of the party, because it's not me that's doing these stupid things. So if you don't like it, it's not that you don't like me, you don't like drunk me.
Right.
And like, it gave me a kind of like a barrier, so people couldn't be like, I don't like Michael. Like, oh, I don't like drunk Michael. Very different.
See, mine was the complete opposite.
Really?
Right? I always knew, right, that when I was high with these people, I was in with them. We were on the same wavelength, right? And that I could always be myself without having any sort of repercussions, because because everybody else was in the same mindset
of just being genuine to themselves.
Yes,
Really?
I felt like, I'm not saying that when I was high I was me. I'm me right now.
Mm-hmm.
However, I always felt like I could be myself when I was high.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have like social issues or anything,
mm-hmm.
but like I always knew, like, if I didn't know this person, right, or we're not really friends, but we're acquaintances or whatever, I knew that if I was high and they were high and we could all just be together and have a good night, that no matter what happens, I can open up, I can make friends, when we have this common bond.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I always felt like I could be myself when I was high, rather than having a scapegoat saying like, oh, that was high Alex. That's how it was for me.
So it gave you kind of a sense of brotherhood between everyone because we're all on the same thing.
Yep, and it made me feel like I fit in, right? And that's how I filled that that feeling inside me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
now, did you do that same thing? Because I know in high school you really didn't do any drugs. So how did you see that? Like, what are some like signs that that's how you were in like high school, for example, when you didn't? Because you and I both didn't drink or do drugs up until senior year of high school.
Right.
So where most people 9th, 10th, 11th grade are partying and doing all that, we didn't. So where did you notice that in yourself then when you weren't even doing it? Like kind of like warning signs to say.
I actually did go to Matt's parties in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
Okay.
I was invited to every single one of them, right? I didn't drink for a lot of them, but I mean, I did drink from 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade.
Oh, so you did drink.
Not a lot.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. But always at those parties, right? I was only friends with a handful of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Ben, Dan, Sal. Mm-hmm. I was with that group, right? They were my friends. But there was always, 10, 15 other people that, I was never the best friends with, like the girl group that was always there, maybe a handful of them. But again, like I felt like I fit in, and it's funny because like I'm getting invited to these parties, right? And I still didn't feel like I fit in.
Right.
When 90% of our grade,
I didn't go.
Never was even invited, right?
Mm-hmm. But so you did fit in, but you felt like you didn't.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that's how I filled that hole with drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a common theme for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so in college, when you were doing this with people and you were doing it, you were all doing the same drug, and that made you feel a sense of brotherhood, a sense of similarity between them. Yeah. That's what you were doing. Is you were basically saying like we're all being vulnerable with each other right now. So now we all know the real each other.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Even though, when you're high, you're not yourself. But a lot of these drugs make you, like Molly, for example, it makes you spill your fucking guts, man.
Really?
Yeah. Like Molly is, what's the word? Sympathometic or something like that. And these whatever types of drugs, Adderall, Ritalin, cocaine, Molly, stimulants usually in general, right? They give you this sense of like, I love everybody and I love the world, right?
Yeah.
And it makes you want to tell people like your deepest, darkest secrets because you feel like you had this connection with them. And even when I wasn't doing those drugs, I felt that connection. That's why I liked it for for a little bit, And obviously, as my story progresses, it turns into me doing it by myself and isolating and getting worse and worse and worse. And
so where was that transition for you? Like where you
heroin.
Went from? So did you initially start doing heroin though in a group?
I'll tell the story.
Please do.
I remember the first time I did heroin.
I remember the first time you did heroin.
No, this was before. You weren't with me.
You didn't? That's not the day that you came to me and told me that you were on heroin?
No.
Oh, don't know. I don't know the first time.
Actually, I don't remember telling you that. I don't know.
I remember you came to me. I was working at Friendly's, doing a night shift as a waiter, and you pulled up, called me or texted me and said, "Come out to the parking lot." I came out and you told me like, "Dude, I feel better than I've ever felt in my entire life." Da da da. And I'm like, "Oh, what'd you do?" And you're like, "I did heroin."
No.
So that wasn't the first
I
time.
remember that now. But no, that was not the first time.
Oh, you sneaky little devil.
First time. Do you remember? He's actually, to make this kind of a little bleak, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first person to give me a bag of heroin is now dead, right?
Really?
I'll say his name because he's dead, right? Chris Cato.
Oh.
Worked at Fridays.
Oh, damn.
So
That's,
I was hanging out with him one day. I thought we were going to get Coke or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
He pulls up to this house and buys a couple. They were called stamp bags back in the day. I don't know if they're still sold like that or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily for us, right, heroin in 2013, 14 was still heroin.
Mm-hmm.
There was no fentanyl. There was, none of
Thank
that.
God.
None of that going around. Thank God, yes. And I got a bag of fentanyl. We'll get there. But so he picked up a couple stamp bags. Stamp bags were $10 basically. Mm-hmm. They were just one hit done. Mm-hmm. All right. He asked me if I wanted some, like a bag or two, and I told him, yeah, I'll give you $20 for 2 of them. And I had no defense, right?
Mm-hmm. You just wanted to fit in.
I just wanted to fit in, and honestly, by that point, I was ready and willing to try it. I wanted the big dog, right? I wanted to go all the way.
What made you decide that you wanted to go all the way? Like, was it just because you've done it all?
I've done everything else.
So it's time to...
It's time to graduate, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
So I bought the 2 stamp bags, and I went home. Nobody was home. I was lucky. I don't know where they were. I ripped open one of the stamp bags, poured it out, knowing that it was one line. Mm-hmm. I was scared shitless to do this shit, man. Mm-hmm. Let's think about the general thing about heroin, right? Mm-hmm. Chris Cobain. Or Chris
Cobain.
Kurt Cobain, right? Dead. Lane Staley, another singer from Seattle, Alice in Chains, dead, right? What's his name? Jimi Hendrix, dead, right? The singer for, I think The Doors, Jim Morrison, dead, heroin. People are dying all the time from heroin, and this is before even fentanyl was.
This is pure OD.
This is just heroin, yeah. And I was so scared to do this. So I was going to snort it because that's all I had to do with it. I watched Chris actually, he smoked, he put on foil, lit under and smoked the vapors. And, he told me not to do it that way because it hit stronger. I don't know. Okay. So I took a line about this big.
Okay.
The bag probably would have been like this long. I don't know if they can see that, but like this long. Mm-hmm. And I did a line about that big because I was so scared that I was going to overdose. Mm-hmm. So I snorted it, waited about 10 minutes, and I'm like, I don't feel anything. So I ripped open the second bag and did the whole thing.
Holy shit. So this little bum didn't do anything, so let's do a full line.
Yeah. So two full lines.
You did 2 full
lines? I did
lines?
both the bags.
Oh, my God.
And
damn.
And then I
really
sat back. I sat back on the bed. I turned on the TV, and the next thing I knew was morning.
No. So was it even a good high, or just put you out?
Can't remember.
Wow.
But something about it, right, made me want more.
What about it made you want more?
I have no idea.
Really?
I'm sure I felt it for a little bit and was just completely zoned out, right? Mm-hmm. I guarantee you I knew.
So you have no idea if did your parents come home?
Probably.
And you have no idea if a conversation ensued or anything?
The thing is that I got myself ready for bed, got in bed, and slept.
Oh, you did things.
Yeah, and I don't remember.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but obviously in the moment I remembered because the next day I knew I wanted more. I was like, done. And off that first hit, well, not the little bump, but let's think about it all together, right? Mm-hmm. The first hit. All those other drugs that I tried were out of my brain. Mm-hmm. Never again. I can swear, right? Fuck that. Mm-hmm. Right? I didn't want anything to do with cocaine, Molly, alcohol, whatever. Mm-hmm. Didn't want anything to do with it. I knew all I wanted to do was heroin. Mm-hmm. And that is when I became a drug addict, right? From that moment on, I would do anything and everything to get that drug, right? It made me feel so good, right? I would do anything for it. And if I couldn't get heroin, I was getting Percocet, Vicodin, which are all opiates, by the way. Opiates.
So it gave you did it give you a similar kind
not
of
as
feeling
much,
then?
not like
a really watered down.
The pills are like, taking a pill, it takes 30, 40 minutes to kick in, and then you feel it, and it's great. Don't get me wrong. It's a good feeling, but it's nothing like heroin. But I knew that it was similar, so I would do it if I couldn't get heroin. Lo and behold, Chris Cato overdoses. And I'm addicted to heroin, right? If I didn't have it, I knew that I didn't have it. I get restless legs when I go to bed, back pain, withdrawal symptoms. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
Just in maybe 6 months of doing it.
Really? Were you doing it every day?
Not
during
every
the
day.
Initial 6 months?
Not every day, but it picked up to every single day.
So when you first started, what was it? Like you did it and you wanted to find it again, and maybe like a week later you got more? Or was it like you were able to find it?
I got it the next day.
Oh.
I got it the next day, and eventually I was able to start remembering what the high was like. And, I would, sit down, watch TV, I'd play video games, and I would just be in my zone, man. However, there were scary parts, right? There were other nights where I don't remember, right? I would be out, we go to Matt's house, right? I would do a couple stamp bags, and I'd come home, and I'd open up my computer, I'd be on my knees, and the computer's on the bed. Fall asleep, mom walks in at 3 a.m. like, what the hell are you doing on your knees? And it was scary, right? I can't imagine the fear in my mom's, my stepdad's, my sister who was 10 years old.
Yeah.
It's scary. What is happening to my son?
Were you giving off signs where they were recognizing it was a different Alex?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Did they bring that up to you?
No, never.
They just kind of...
And if they ever did bring it up to me, it became this big, huge fight, yelling, screaming. Like, I would get extremely offended.
So it came up maybe one time.
I punched Scott in the face in a fight once.
Why?
Yeah. I just didn't want him in the room. I can't...
Really?
There was no reason. My moods were swinging left and right. If I wasn't high, I was angry. If I wasn't high, I was anxious. I was irritable. I just hated everything. My mindset went from this kid who graduated 12th in high school, right? Who was, we'll say, popular, right? Had a lot of friends, had a lot of things going for him, got into a great school, all gone. I was working at a restaurant and spending every single money and tips that I got that night on heroin, right? And my life went from here slowly, and then here quickly. Like the heroin just did it.
Took over.
Done. Gone. My life was completely unmanageable.
I do recall the mood swings when you were in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple times that I remember. One time, one of the managers at Friendly's said that you got like angry with him. You were making a salad.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you messed it up, and he said, "What are you doing?" And you actually like got defensive about your salad.
Yeah, and same thing with him too. I was clocking. I was like doing a in order on the computer, and he needed to void something. He comes up to me. He's like, "Alex, I've been voiding you all day," and I said, "Fuck you." And I walked in the back, and he grabbed me, and we got into this big argument. Yeah,
really.
My life was literally just gone. And that's the fact of this, right? Doesn't matter how long it takes. My story is quick and short, and it was hard and just quick, right? Somebody else's may take 15 years for them to get to that point, 30 years to get to that point. But eventually the drugs do take over. And then, I ended up quitting Friendly's because of that fight. Right?
Oh, really? That's why you quit?
I quit.
I didn't know
that. I walked out that day with all my tips.
Oh, wow.
And the money that the customers paid me. I grabbed all that and ran. Stole from my job. One thing I would never do ever. Right?
Damn.
Stole hundreds of dollars from my job.
Mm-hmm.
And that night, I went to somebody's house that I didn't know to buy dope.
Mm-hmm.
He shot me up.
Was that your first time shooting up?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And he shot me up, and I said yes because I had no defense. I was addicted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Completely addicted. And all of this happened from college, 18 years old, to 21. 3 years.
That is
3
quite
years.
the journey.
It took
I didn't
3
realize
years
that.
for me to get from point A to point B.
I didn't realize how short that was. Like looking back on it, it seems like it was longer, but
Felt like it took forever.
in all
right?
reality, you left for college, and I remember the one thing I remember, like your lowest point in my memory was after you got in the car accident.
Oh yeah.
And that to me seemed like it was like very long between you going to college and that.
And
but in reality,
the
that was
car
only a couple
accident
years.
Was a hit and run. Another thing I would never do.
It was a hit and run.
I ran from that accident.
So you hit somebody, backed out, and just dipped?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Your hood was like?
Flipping up on the way home on 490. I had to pull over like 6 times to put it back down.
People are just driving by you like, something's going on.
Who knows? The reason I hit and ran was because I had stamp bags all over the floor of my car.
Oh, damn. That wouldn't have been a good look if a cop came. Were you high at that time?
Yeah.
No, you were high at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So did you hit them because you didn't realize like what was going on?
So basically the story is I got high.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually dropping a friend from Friendly's off at home.
Okay.
What was his name? Vince?
Uh,
Angry guy?
Yeah, the ice cream kid? Yeah, Vince.
I dropped him off. I drove over to, again, somebody's house, picked up some stuff, did a line. I was at a stoplight.
Mm-hmm.
I nodded out at the wheel.
Is that a common thing with heroin, is nodding out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So nodding out is basically like falling asleep.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Nodded out at the wheel. I woke up. I thought it had been minutes, right? The light was green. I wasn't looking. I floored it thinking the people behind me are pissed off. I ran right into an old lady. She must have been 80 years old, probably had no idea what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I backed up, drove to the side, gave her a thumbs up, make sure she was okay. Off I went.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
Did
I
she
gave
give
her
you
a thumbs up
back?
I don't know. Probably not. She looked terrified, man. She looked terrified.
Gave her a thumbs up and left.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As you can see, went from happy-go-lucky stories to, what are we talking about now, right?
Hit and run, stealing from your job.
Right. That's where the drugs took me. And that's not even the low. We can talk about my first overdose, right?
I think that's a great place to be. A great place to go to really show how this affects someone.
So the first time I overdosed was actually not on heroin. It was on Percocet.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, roxycodone. But not the 10 milligram that everybody takes, an 80 milligram pill that cancer patients take for pain.
Jesus.
Right?
Okay. How'd you get your hands on that? Did someone had it?
Someone from Fridays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Actually, where I met Wayne.
The
person I met Wayne through. But this was way after when I hung out with them, or I just ended up finding it, and I took it, and I blacked out, gone. Don't remember a thing. Woke up in somebody's basement, just gone. And let me explain what an overdose is, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think that overdoses mean that you die, you get Narcan, you're all of that. Technically, an overdose, dependent on the drugs, right? Heroin could definitely lead to a Narcan or a death, but like there's several kinds of overdoses. Like benzodiazepine overdoses is amnesia, being discoordinated, uncoordinated. I mean, there's a list of symptoms. Doesn't mean that you necessarily pass out and die, right?
Right.
An overdose is when you take too much and the effects that you get are not what you expected, and you don't remember a thing, and whatever happens, right?
Right.
Doesn't always mean that you need to, like, a Narcan or to die, or death is part of it.
Right.
But it's not
an extreme overdose.
It's not like it, what people think it is. So, this time I woke up in somebody's basement. I was violently throwing up, and and that was my first overdose, right? You'd think it would stop there, but it didn't.
Nope.
However, that was the first time that I decided that I would want to get help. Kind of.
So it kind of pointed you in the right direction, at least.
Kind of. So I was seeing a psychiatrist at the time, basically conning her for controlled substances.
Which, if I recall correctly from our previous video, you did that in college as well.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep. So I was seeing this lady who diagnosed me with schizophrenia. Actually, on a positive note, guys, right? I'm seeing a psychiatrist now to get a second opinion. All of my schizophrenic symptoms were not schizophrenia, so I do not have it. Actually, it was drug-induced psychosis.
Really? So the symptoms that you were having, I'm sorry, we're going to go back to...
The
symptoms that you were having, you were hearing voices, you were seeing things, and that was all drug-induced psychosis.
Drug-induced.
So have you, since not taking any drugs, have those symptoms still been going on or not so much?
I haven't had a single symptom in 5 years.
Really? So you got diagnosed with schizophrenia when it wasn't that all along. Jesus. So real quick though, I do want, now that I know that, what did you, so like, I remember one time we were leaving Levi and Evan's house, and you were driving home, and you said that you saw something or heard a voice telling you to do something while you were driving. Can you go into detail on that? Just because
I can't remember that.
You said that like while you were driving, you hear whispering in your ear.
Basically, using drugs over all that period of time constantly changed the chemistry in my brain.
Really? Okay.
To cause psychosis. And because I stopped periodically using the drugs, that psychosis has gone away, right? Like my psychiatrist now is funny. She goes, I've never sat in front of a schizophrenic and had a conversation that's been this coherent.
Right. So
exactly. So it's not schizophrenia. I don't know if I told you that.
So what, you didn't? This is the
I
first
don't know
time
if I told you that.
That's actually fantastic.
Yeah, it's not schizophrenia.
So what are the things that you were hearing, seeing, whatever, that made you and your therapist at the time believe that you had schizophrenia?
Because I didn't tell her about the drug use.
Well, aside from that. Like, what were you, so you
hearing,
were, without being high, hearing voices and seeing.
Hearing voices, seeing things, paranoia.
What were the voices saying? Do you recall what the voices were saying or what you saw?
A lot of times it was basically just calling my name. There was one voice that I couldn't understand a shit thing what they were saying, but it sounded like demonic, actually.
Speaking Latin in your ear?
This was sounded like, as funny as that sounds, like, that's what it sounded like. But it's just crazy. I don't know. But yeah, that's product of being sober and clean, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. That's insane, because I did not think in a million years, I did not think that would have been the outcome. I thought that it was just like, oh, he's got schizophrenia. Whole time, it's literally drug induced. So the last 5 years, you haven't had anything because you haven't done anything. Not a single
symptom. Well, I mean, I've done drugs in the last 5 years, but it wasn't like
to the extent.
Right. So basically, my psychiatrist did a drug test on me without letting me know. Came back positive for cocaine, benzos, which I was prescribed, so it didn't mean anything, and heroin. And she didn't tell me. Did it come in with heroin, or did it come in with a general opiates?
Yeah. Gotcha.
She didn't tell me what it showed up as. It was her, me, my mom, my stepdad.
Oh, she called them in.
And she said, "What showed up on your drug test?" So I had to say
Ooh.
cocaine, and not thinking that it would show up as opiates, I said heroin. And that was it.
So done. Now my mom and stepdad and psychiatrist, no. Out of your mouth.
Out of my mouth. And my mom turns and asks me, she goes, are you going to get help? And I told her no.
Wow.
Told her no.
Okay.
I was in such a dark place.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think that there was a way out. And I was going to live and die by the needle. I was done.
So you were really dedicated to this.
I didn't think that I could ever get out of the hole that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
And that I was rather happy enough to just die than try to get my life back in order. I've lost so many years. I didn't think it was possible.
Mm. And retrospectively, you really did. 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah. And the next day, I woke up and somehow had some sort of change of heart. And I called my mom and said, Mom, I need help. And that is how I live my life today, is asking for help when it's needed, right? Mm-hmm. I was too proud to ask for help. And today, I am not ashamed of it whatsoever, because I know that I can get out of any situation I am in as long as I ask for help. Mm-hmm. And with the program that I'm in, I have a spiritual higher power, that whose will I do, that will always get me out of any situation I am in. Mm-hmm. May not be good, right? Mm-hmm. But as long as I can rely on that higher power today, I have faith that I will get through any situation unscathed, right? That's what I've learned.
Fantastic.
That's what I've learned. And I'm sure we'll get into the spiritual part of this too, but I ended up getting help. I went to an outpatient at a hospital here, and then comes my second overdose. And the second overdose, I have the most guilt out of anything that I've done in my entire life.
Why is that?
One of my friends in the rehab that I was at wanted to go hang out after. We had no intention of getting high. I went to his house. We ended up driving. We were going to drive to a party just to hang out with his friends. I guess it wasn't even a party, right? Mm-hmm. It was just just a gathering. No drinking, no drugs. And we're driving there, and I turned to him. I said, we're not real friends until we do heroin together. So I went and get heroin, right? Mm-hmm. And this heroin had fentanyl in it.
Oh, my God.
I took one bump. My anxiety went completely away. I felt great. Mm-hmm. About 30 minutes later, he turns to me and goes, do you want to do one more? I did the one more, and I died. My heart stopped. I was gone. I woke up kind of in the passenger seat of my car with him basically feeding me energy drinks to get me going again. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to call the cops, didn't want to call an ambulance.
Of course not, yeah.
Basically left me for dead. I probably should have just died.
Right.
Something, and I believe this is my higher power today, right? Mm-hmm. Something wanted me to live.
Right.
Right. This greater power wanted me to live that night. And my phone was dead. Couldn't call anybody. We ended up going back to his house. I think I just remember waking up in his basement on some sort of couch at 5 a.m. My mom has no idea where I've been since 8 p.m. I can't imagine. She's probably, my son is dead.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
My son is dead, right? And I found his phone, and I called my mom at 5 a.m. Mm-hmm. And I was clean for about 2 months at this point. And she asked me, she said, did you do heroin? And I said yes. But even though how bad that sounds, that was the first time I told the truth in probably 5 years.
Wow.
Right? Or whatever my use was at that time.
That's huge, though.
Probably the first time I ever told my mom the truth. Mm-hmm. I'm a good liar, man. Mm-hmm. I've trained for years lying about stupid bullshit that doesn't even need to be lied about, but this was the first time I ever told the truth to her.
That's a huge step.
No matter how bad she felt, no matter how relieved she might have felt to hear from me. Mm-hmm. Finally told the truth. And that's another part of my recovery today. is telling the truth. No matter how bad it sounds, it's always better than lying about it.
100%.
Right? I'm sure you agree with that, right?
Absolutely.
So that was my second overdose. And by that time, I finally said, all right, let's try it. So I went to a group, the group that I'm in now. However, I never did anything with it, right? I never got the sponsor that they talk about, somebody who would take you through the 12 steps. It's a 12-step program. I can say that. I just won't say the name of it. And I did everything they told me not to do, right? But I didn't think that I was an alcoholic. Therefore, I still drank. Even though I wasn't doing heroin, it was okay. For the viewers, right? I haven't done heroin since January 8th of 2015. However, I have done other drugs because while I was going to this group, I was still drinking. And eventually I picked up the cocaine again. And eventually I was using Percocet again. So even though I haven't done heroin, Percocet basically counts for an opiate, right? I did that for another 5 years.
You did the Percocet for another 5 years.
And
not every day. What made you stop that?
So that comes to my third overdose, which you know about. I was living with Justin. I think you might know about this. And this actually, guys, this actually comes to the part of my story where I work on my recovery and get out of my addiction, right? So we're getting to the good part. So I had my third overdose. Summer, my girlfriend at the time, right? We decided to end things mainly on her prompt. I was treating her awful.
Okay.
I have no relationship skills at this point. You know, I wasn't working on myself.
Right.
Exactly.
I was
using drugs. I didn't know who I was. You know, I didn't know what was going on. I was treating her bad, and I wasn't meeting her needs, and we basically called it off. I was completely distraught. My uncle drove to my apartment, and we traded Adderall for Xanax. Wow. First time I ever did a benzo to get high. He gave me 3 bars, which is 6 milligrams of Xanax. For anybody that wants to know, the average dose of Xanax is 0.5 milligrams. I took one of those bars just to get the anxiety gone, right? I wasn't even attempting to get high. Next thing I knew, right, I was waking up for work the next day. Didn't know where I was completely. I don't remember anything from when I took that first Xanax until the next night. I ended up hitting my roommate's car on the way to work, hitting 2 parked cars in the Tops parking lot while trying to park to have him come and pick me up. In the middle of an overdose, I'm driving. Okay? Wow. Drove over the Tops median 3 times.
Okay.
And he came and picked me up, drove me to work, and my mom and Summer actually came. And
really,
you know, we're talking. I'm telling my mom what I've done, the coke, the Percocet, all of it. And Summer ended up driving me to this place called Open Access, which is in Rochester, New York. It's a place where they find rehabs for people who need help. And she basically dropped me off and said, "Good luck."
Yeah, right? She dropped you off.
She stayed for a little bit. I walked in and everything, but I sat outside Open Access for a few hours deciding whether or not if I wanted to do this. And I walked in there and I got help. And that's the last day I've taken a drink or a drug.
Wow.
Last day I took a drink or a drug. They got me into a place in Syracuse called Tully Hill. Unfortunately, because I had the diagnosis of schizophrenia at the time, they couldn't meet my needs. So instead, I went back to the same outpatient that I did earlier. However, this time was different because of my entire past, the 3 overdoses, being in this dark place, not thinking I could get out, addiction literally ruling my life, being in the hole, thousands of dollars, going to places I never thought I'd do, buying prostitutes, right? Bought 2.
Didn't know that.
2.
How'd that go?
They gave me drugs for it. That's why I did it. Yeah, they walked up to me. I pay them, they give me drugs, and then we would just do it.
Okay.
So I guess I didn't really buy the prostitute. It was kind of like a mutual exchange.
It's like a buy one get one free.
Yeah, buy one get one free. But I did it, and it's something I would never do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. None of this sounds like you.
I was gone.
Mm-hmm.
I was finally ready and willing to do everything I needed to do to get out of this place that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I had a place to go, which is the group that I'm in now, the 12-step group, right? And finally, I admitted to myself that I have a problem with not only heroin, but Percocet, cocaine, Molly, every drug out there, and alcohol, which is the one thing I didn't want to give up because I didn't think that I had a problem with it. I could control it.
Mm-hmm.
But this time I finally said I was done. I'm going cold turkey of everything, not taking a single thing unless I was prescribed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to that group September 24th of 2021, which is not my actual sobriety date, but it's the date that I call my sobriety date because it was the first time I went to the group.
Okay.
I don't actually know the day that I quit. Everything that day that I was in the overdose, I can't even remember what week it was, sometime in August of that year. And I've been clean and sober ever since. I haven't taken a drink or a drug since. But do you want to hear how my life is today?
I do. But
do you have a couple questions? Yeah,
yes.
Go ahead.
So obviously the goal here of this video is to make it so that people don't have to go down the path that you went in order to realize that sobriety is the way to go and to get help is something that you need to do.
Yep.
So for somebody who's maybe dealing with addiction, whether it be cocaine, alcohol, whatever, and they want to stop, what is something that you can say helped you in your decision to just stop doing it all?
So it's not that easy, right?
No, it doesn't sound easy at all.
It's not going to stop unless you're ready to, right? I had to go through 3 overdoses, and I didn't lose anything, right? I gave everything away, how I think about it, right?
Right.
I gave away friends, I gave away family, I gave away money, I gave away a girlfriend, I gave away my car, I gave away everything to get high, right? I was sick of giving things away, and I wanted to get things back. I was finally at that bottom to where I was ready to ask for help and get the help I needed. It's not so easy to say, hey, I have a problem with cocaine. I don't know how to stop. How can I stop? It's not, unfortunately, if you're not ready, it's not going to happen. Right? So for anybody listening, even if you're not ready today, if you want to maybe get into a position where you might be ready, think about your bank account, right? Is it bankrupt? Think about your family. Do they not even want to see you, right? Think about your friends. Do you have any, right? Do you want that back?
Right.
If you want that back, then you got to get ready to put in the work, change yourself. If I can make the most important point of this video, right? Addiction is not a disease of taking drugs and alcohol, right? Drugs and alcohol are not the issue.
Right.
You are the issue, right? It's myself that needs to change to get over this issue. I need to work on myself. The first thing I needed to do was admit that I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And that's the first step. Whether you're in a 12-step program or not, that's the first step anyway. You get acknowledged that you're an alcoholic and a drug addict. And it's not a bad thing.
Right.
Right?
There
are hundreds of thousands of drug addicts out there, and there are hundreds of thousands that have gotten clean and sober for more than 30 years, 40 years, right? And the first thing that they ever did in their road to recovery is admit to themselves that they have a problem with drugs and alcohol, right? And the biggest thing that you need to understand is that, my name is Alex. And yes, I'm a drug addict and alcoholic. But what I should say is I'm a drug addict and alcoholic, and my problem is Alex. Right?
Mm-hmm.
To change your thinking and your behaviors in order to get over the situation that you're in. If you can change the way that you think, if you can change the way that you behave, and it takes work, you can get over any issue that you have in your life.
That's absolutely true. That is absolutely
any issue
true.
that you have in your life.
So now that you're not doing any of that, so you don't drink, you don't do any drugs anymore.
Nope.
Now, do you think that the reason for that is because you hit the rock bottom? Because there was an interview with Mike Tyson. He said the only way to get better, or the only way to fix yourself, is to hit rock bottom.
Yes.
Now, do you
That's
think
the most true statement I've ever heard.
Do you think that anybody watching this who's maybe in the midst of it all, who hasn't hit the rock bottom yet, but understands, like, because I'm sure while you were doing the heroin and you didn't hit your rock bottom, you thought to yourself, like, this might be becoming an issue.
Yeah.
Someone who maybe has those thoughts entering their head, what is something that maybe they can do so they don't have to hit the rock bottom?
Ask for help. Ask somebody for help immediately. If you know that you're going that way, nip it in the bud immediately. You do not have to hit a rock bottom to get sober.
Right.
Right? Or clean, whatever you want to call it, right? You do not have to hit rock bottom. It's easier if you hit rock bottom.
If you lose everything.
If you lose everything like I did, you know, it's a lot easier to ask for help, right? Ask somebody for help, whether it be a mentor, a friend, a family member. Ask somebody, I have a problem with drugs. I have a problem with alcohol. I need help. Can you help me? If it's somebody very close to you, even if you gave them away, right? Like when you left my life, right? I'm sure that if I came to you and said, Michael, I need help, you'd probably go find help.
100%.
Right? Right?
100%.
You're my best friend, right? It doesn't matter what we've been through. I know that if I went to you and asked for help, you would at least either go online or you'd go to the next person that would be able to help and say, my friend needs help. What can you do for them? So the biggest thing, if you have not hit rock bottom yet, if you don't know that you can stop on your own, if you do not have the willpower, which none of us do, none of us addicts have enough willpower to stop, just ask somebody for help, and the help will come. And that's the hardest part, because we've, as addicts, our whole using career, have been afraid to ask somebody for help because we think that we got this. You know, I'm going to get out of this myself. For me, the 12 steps got me sober and got me working on myself. But a higher power of my own understanding, it's not religious, it's my own understanding, keeps me sober and clean 24 hours at a time. I take this one day at a time. That's how
to make it manageable.
That's how simple it is. One day at a time, with the help of a higher power that only I understand. If you're Christian, great. You've got a better understanding than I do. But if you're an agnostic, if you're an atheist, all it has to be is your own understanding. When I started trying to find my own spiritual higher power, I took a look at things like the wind. Can I make the wind blow?
No.
Can I make the sun rise?
No.
Make the moon come out, the stars. Can I make the earth turn? Then there's a power greater than myself that does that. I rely on that to keep me sober. Right?
Yeah.
If I give up my will, and this might be a little confusing to some people because I can't really get into the program very much, but I can tell my experience, of course. You know, if I can just give up all of my will to do anything to this higher power, then I don't have to do anything to keep myself sober. That power greater than myself that I rely on, then I know will never let anything bad happen to me and keep me sober as long as I keep it in that 24-hour period, you know?
Absolutely. And that's I had somebody on the podcast, our first episode back in season 2, and he was talking about how he's big into spirituality now and higher power and all of that. And he's talking about how you kind of meditate on it, like, so he talks about how he'll go home, he'll meditate, he'll be like, he'll meditate on a goal that he has, and he'll go home and he'll meditate on that goal daily or every couple days, and in doing so, he feels as though it's almost as if there's someone behind you kind of pushing you in the direction, as opposed to just doing it all yourself.
I have God moments every single day.
Do you?
You know what I mean? Every single day I find something that's this power that works in my life, right? I had a power save my life 3 times.
Yes.
3 times. Not some people don't even get 1. 3 times. That's not powerful enough for you then. I don't know what is.
That's powerful as hell.
So I will say this though, just to everybody. This program, this 12-step program, it works for me. It's worked for thousands of people. I recommend trying Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Heroin Anonymous, if that's your problem, anything anonymous. There's groups, thousands, hundreds of thousands of groups across the United States, England, France, wherever you're watching, they have some sort of 12-step group for you. And that's what worked for me. Working the 12 steps and finding that higher power. But in my life, like, I find that if I just give up my will in the morning, the day just gets so much easier. I don't have all this baggage on my shoulder.
Right.
And to the meditation part, like, I meditate twice a day.
Really?
In the morning, just about my day, what my plans are for the day. And at night, I just think about the day and what happened. Who did I help today? Was I kind and courteous to other people? Just being a better person, and through doing these kind deeds and, working the 12 steps and, working on myself, understanding what makes me tick, understanding why I seek drugs and alcohol. Why do I lie? Why do I harm others sometimes? Understanding that and knowing that about myself allows me to fix it. And when I fix the underlying issue, drugs and alcohol just float away. I haven't had a craving for heroin, alcohol, cocaine, any of it in probably a year. Not one single craving, right?
That's strong.
And that's all because of a 12-step program and working on myself. It's all about yourself, right?
Absolutely.
This is the only time in your life that you can make everything about yourself. Okay?
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And to kind of switch over to a lighter note, because I know your life has changed significantly since you're, stopping
months.
Doing all of this and being sober. 19 months sober. That's huge. Let everyone know, anyone who's watching who maybe might be battling addiction or knows somebody who is, what is going on in your life right now since stopping, to show them that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you really believe in this higher power and you really believe in getting yourself help, this can also be something for you.
Yeah. So anybody out there watching that's battling with addiction, so through this whole podcast, you've heard how it started, okay? You've heard where it ended up, right? And I can say, just talking about it didn't end up very well, right? Didn't end up good. No?
It did not end up well. No, it didn't.
In just 19 months, I've made amends to all the people that I have harmed, including this guy, right? I made amends, right? I've been able to repair the relationships, the damage that I had done in just 19 months, right? I have formed a relationship with a higher power that keeps me clean and sober, that I don't have to put any baggage on my shoulders. I can just give it all to him and let him worry about it. And I am so carefree today, right? I am a medical student. I can go to school. I have a 3.9 GPA. Okay? I write music. My My latest album on Spotify that I released on my 1 year sobriety date, it's called Sober, has thousands of streams. Beyond, anything. I have friends today that love me, that I love, that I can rely on. I have a family that is part of my life today that had given up all hope on me. I have a family that loves me, that I can, that I have. There's nothing more important than family. Nothing more important than family. And I have that again. I don't have to rely on a needle, right? I don't have to wake up and get high just to keep the sick off. I have a life that's beyond my wildest dreams. I was in a position at my bottom where I didn't think that anything could get me out of this hole that I was in. And just in 19 months, I've risen out of that hole and way past it. If you're battling with addiction and you don't think that anything is going to change the way that your life is going, ask for help. Ask for help, because you can do this. I did it. I got out of it, and you can too. Just, it takes a little bit of work. You got to work on yourself. Get spiritual. It doesn't have to be religious. Get spiritual. Find that higher power for yourself, and you can have a positive, successful life. And one more thing. One of the biggest things that when I first got clean and sober this time, that I was nervous about, I thought that I had wasted, 10 years of my life that I'll never get back. And that is false. You have not wasted any time of your life. There's always enough time in your life to change your behaviors and your attitudes and get clean and sober and lead a positive, fulfilling life. I look forward to waking up every day, clean and sober. I thank my higher power every day to keep me clean and sober, and thank him for keeping me clean and sober. And I know that I don't have to rely on any drugs or alcohol ever again. I don't have to drink or drug today, tomorrow, the next day, or ever again, right? All I need to know is that I'm a good person. You're a good person. You're not a bad person. You just need help, and you just got to ask for it, because you can get out of that hole. That's all I did.
No, you absolutely killed it. Normally, I end the podcast by asking, what is one thing you want people to take away? But honestly, I feel like that monologue that you just had kind of took care of everything. So
one thing,
mm-hmm.
Before you post this podcast,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to create an email,
mm-hmm.
and I'll give it to you to post in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody has any questions or needs help or wants to be guided in the right direction, they can email me.
Okay, so you heard that. But one thing that I want to end with, because
Mm-hmm.
we always got to end with something here.
Yeah.
What does the future look like for you now?
Future for me? Let's see. It's tough to say with school, because I kind of go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the process of becoming a doctor.
Okay.
However, my major is math, and I really like statistics.
Okay.
But doesn't matter what I go into, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will have a job
mm-hmm.
that I worked for.
Mm-hmm.
I won't be working minimum wage jobs ever again.
That's always a plus.
My future, though, the main part of my future that I see is that I see another at least 40 years, 50 years clean and sober, and that's all I want. Whatever else happens is just a gift of sobriety,
mm-hmm.
right? All that I care about is that I stay sober for the rest of my life, and if I can do that, I'm happy. And speaking of happy, that's another thing. I was angry, irritable, sad, miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Today I'm truly happy. Every single day I wake up happy,
mm-hmm.
and I have no issues on my plate, because I just know I'm doing the next right thing.
And that's all without the use of drugs and alcohol.
All without the use of drugs and alcohol. And like I said, I don't have to, and they don't have to if they're suffering with addiction. They don't have to take another drink or drug.
Right.
They don't have to.
And I think the way that you described it is the way that people should look at it to make it more manageable. Just 24-hour windows.
24 hours
Just
at a time.
one day at a time. And that's it. But I wanted to thank you for coming on and telling your story, having this follow-up episode.
Yeah.
I think this one was just as amazing as the first one, if not better. There were things that in the first one we didn't even talk about.
Yeah.
We talked about on this one. Anybody watching this, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. In the description, there's going to be his email. Anyone battling addiction or anyone who knows somebody who is battling addiction, email him directly and talk to him. He will give you advice. He is probably, out of everybody I know, the most knowledgeable on the subject and the most willing to help without any type of judgment whatsoever. Yes. Also in the description is going to be the links to episode 1 with Alex, where he talks about his battle with addiction, a little more different things, a little more in depth on in some parts and a little less in some parts. Definitely worth the watch. And again, thank you for watching and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.